Hello there. This is World News Program, streaming to you live on all 24 News. I'm your host, Greenfield Zachary, and up next are the top stories. In the last 24 hours, 46 Palestinians were killed in 4 new Zionist massacres. Bombings in Khan Yunis and Gaza, central Gaza, have caused further casualties as the occupation forces are expending missile attacks. In 6 months, the occupation has displaced thousands of Palestinian families in Gaza, and UNICEF reports 600,000 children face hunger and invasion risk in Rafah, while the resistance and the jihad sends a delegation to Cairo and inflicts casualties on Zionist forces in Khan Yunis. The Australian government is investigating the World Central Kitchen massacre in Gaza. The World Food Programme urges protection for humanitarian workers, and the UN condemns the Gaza genocide as a betrayal of humanity. Also ahead, Washington is on high alert following the Zionist attack on the Iranian consulate in Syria. Iran warns of inevitable revenge, escalating tensions in the Middle East and pushing oil prices to their highest level in 7 months. Stay tuned, we've got all the details right after the break. Hello again and welcome to the details. First off, in our topical news, in the past 24 hours, the Zionist occupation forces committed 4 new massacres in the Gaza Strip, resulting in 42 martyrs and 65 injured. The Palestinian Ministry of Health, meanwhile, in Gaza has reported a total of 33,173 martyrs and 75,815 injured since October 7th. And on Saturday, the Zionist occupation forces conducted missile and artillery shelling on homes in various areas of Gaza City, resulting in casualties. Al-Zaytun, Al-Sabra, and Tel Al-Hawa and Sheikh Ajlin neighborhoods were targeted, leading to the death of 3 Palestinians and the injury of about 10 others. In Khan Yunis, violent air and artillery attack continued from Friday night to Saturday, with several shells fired towards southwestern neighborhoods and airstrikes hitting the city's central and west. Occupation artillery bombed Palestinian homes in Al-Mughraqa and Al-Zahra and the northern outskirts of the Nusayrat camp in central Gaza Strip. The bombing resulted in injuries among Palestinians who were then transferred to Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Balah, alongside occupation artillery shelled Palestinian property in Beit Hanun in the northern Gaza Strip. And during 6 months of relentless aggression, the Zionist occupation has displaced thousands of Palestinian families in the Gaza Strip. Hundreds of families, have been completely annihilated, while thousands had to face the bitterness of displacement. The story is signed by Zahra Fajani.
Wael Ashur, a displaced resident of Khan Yunis, navigates through the makeshift tents that now serve as homes for Gazans, replacing the ones demolished by Zionist forces. With a heavy heart and 50 years of memories buried beneath the rubble, he strives to move forward with his family, despite the fear of the ongoing aggression against Gaza.
The aftermath of war, that's what I fear. I know this war all too well, and I know its consequences. I have no refuge. My home has been bombed and collapsed upon its inhabitants, and 50 years of memories are lost.
In the past, Mrs. Ashur joyfully hosted elaborate iftar gatherings for her extended family. But today, she quietly measures the pain of loss and the dispersion of her loved ones.
We have been separated. I don't see my children or even my brothers. Each of them lives in a different area, some in Al Mawazi, others in Al Nusayrat, and the rest in Rafah. We have been torn apart and unable to reunite.
Amid the soaring cost of living in Gaza, meeting the basic needs for sustenance, even for just a day, has become increasingly challenging for Palestinians. Wa'il Ashur's family represents merely a fraction of the countless households in Gaza, whose residences have been devastated by Zionist attacks, leaving them to grapple with the aftermath of an assault with no clear resolution in sight.
UNICEF spokesperson James Elder confirmed that over 600,000 children in Rafah, located in the southern Gaza Strip, endure hunger, fear, and the imminent threat of a Zionist invasion.
What for me makes Gaza a little different is everywhere I turn there is another Selma. This ICU is full of children with the wounds of war. Sometimes I will return here and the next day there is a different child in a bed because the child I saw the day before has not made it, despite the heroics of these doctors and nurses. So this horror story for children, it has to end, okay? These children, Selma and so many like her.
In a different development now, Hamas reiterated its refusal to abandon its demands for a prisoner exchange deal with the Zionist entity. The movement stated that a delegation would travel to Cairo on Sunday, responding to an Egyptian invitation. Hamas's demands include a permanent ceasefire, withdrawal of Zionist forces from Gaza, return of displaced persons to their homes with relief and shelter, and a comprehensive prisoner exchange. Hamas emphasized that these demands are essential to ending the aggression and must not be compromised. And on Saturday, the Palestinian resistance in Gaza reported neutralizing 6 Zionist soldiers and injuring others in Azana, east of Khan Yunis. Additionally, they say they have targeted a Zionist tank in Al Amal neighborhood, killing and injuring Zionist food forces. Azad-Din al-Qassam Brigade's Hamas's military wing stated that they killed 5 Zionist soldiers and destroyed a troop carrier in Khan Yunis. They also targeted fleeing Zionist forces in Hadath area, resulting in more casualties. Meanwhile, the situation in northern Gaza is particularly dire, with famine looming and all 3 famine thresholds expected to be surpassed within the next 2 months. Security concerns persist after the killing of 7 aid workers from the World Central Kitchen in a Zionist airstrike. Without adequate security guarantees, efforts to prevent famine are faltering. Here's Salman Asib.
It's been 6 months of continuous massacres in Gaza that have left nothing but destruction and death in its wake. If innocent people make it out alive from incessant and indiscriminate bombs, they might not be as lucky to escape from hunger inflicted by a brutal Zionist occupation that is even blocking humanitarian aid access to nearly 2 million people. According to the World Food Programme, following the killing of 7 aid workers for the World Central Kitchen, security remains a big concern for aid workers when trying to provide food to more than 1 million people in the besieged territory each month.
The World Food Programme has been able here to serve 1 million people every month with food because they completely depend on us. But we have challenges. We don't have the necessary security guarantees to work here. The people also need to be safe. So for that, for us to really be able to scale up, to avert famine so that people don't have to die because they don't have food, we need security guarantees for us as humanitarians, but also for the people we serve in Gaza.
Several organizations have suspended food aid due to safety concerns for their workers. As a result, the food crisis is getting more and more serious, making 70% of the population face catastrophic hunger. When we were displaced at the beginning, we used to eat rotten bread because of the high prices of food here. This is the only place where I can get food for my children. I have 3 boys and 1 girl. They need food. Where do I get them food from? I couldn't afford to buy food. Everything is so expensive and I have no money. This local kitchen is our safe place. We come here every day. The latest statement from the World Food Programme warns that famine is imminent, particularly in northern Gaza. There is strong evidence indicating that within the next 2 months, the region will surpass the thresholds for famine, including food insecurity, malnutrition, and mortality.
In a related topic, the Australian government appointed a special advisor to ensure thorough investigation into the Zionist bombing of 8 workers, which resulted in the deaths of 7 workers, including an Australian. Foreign Minister Penny Wong emphasized in a press conference that Australia had informed the Israeli government that it had not yet grasped the gravity of the situation regarding the killing of humanitarian workers.
And what I would say, but obviously what we want is full transparency and accountability, which is why the Deputy Prime Minister and I have written to our counterparts, setting out our expectations. It's also why the government will appoint a special advisor who we have requested the Israelis work with, so we can be advised about the appropriateness of the process. We want to have full confidence in the transparency and accountability of any investigation. We will continue to work to achieve that.
Martin Griffiths, the coordinator of humanitarian affairs and relief operations at the United Nations, labeled the genocide in Gaza as a betrayal of humanity. In a statement issued in New York ahead of the 6-month mark of the war, Griffiths called for a collective response to hold accountable those responsible for what he termed as genocide against Palestinians in Gaza.
For the people of Gaza, the past 6 months of war have brought death, devastation, and now the immediate prospect of a shameful man-made famine. It is not enough for 6 months of war to be a moment of remembrance and mourning. It must also spur collective determination that there be reckoning for this betrayal of humanity.
The International Court of Justice announced that Colombia had filed a request to intervene as a party in South Africa's case against the Zionist entity regarding the genocide in Gaza. The court stated that Colombia submitted the request in accordance with its statute concerning the implementation of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Following this, the court invited South Africa and the Zionist entity to submit written notes related to Colombia's request to intervene in the case. On Friday, former Speaker of the House, or the U.S. House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, joined the 40 Democratic representatives, in signing a letter urging President Joe Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken to halt arms transfers to the Zionist entity. The letter called for a special investigation into an Israeli airstrikes that resulted in the deaths of 7 employees of the World Central Kitchen in Gaza last Monday. And on the last Friday of Ramadan, over 200,000 worshippers gathered at Al-Aqsa Mosque for evening and Tarawih prayers amid strict security measures imposed by the Zionist occupation. Despite limitations on entry imposed by the occupation, thousands of Palestinians from Al-Quds within the Great Line, or the Green Line, and the West Bank congregated to observe Laylat al-Qadr. Occupation police intensified security, deploying forces around the Old City and Al-Aqsa Mosque gates. The Islamic Endowments Department in Al-Quds reported that the number of worshippers, particularly from the West Bank, was significantly lowered or compared to previous years. On the night from Friday to Saturday, Zionist occupation forces attacked worshippers near the Lion's Gate and arrested several after they finished performing the Isha and Tarawih prayers on Laylat al-Qadr. 2 young men sustained bruises in the incident. Eyewitnesses also reported an increased presence of occupation forces at Al-Aqsa Mosque gates and Al-Quds Old City, particularly at the Lions and As-Silsilah gates. Palestinians were subjected to searches upon arrival for prayers. The occupation authorities restricted entry for males under 55 and females under 50, continuing a siege and heightened restrictions imposed on worshippers since October 7th. Moving on to the West Bank now, 3 Palestinians, including a child, were wounded by bullets fired by Zionist occupation forces during clashes in the northern and southern West Bank. The Palestinian Red Crescent reported that a 30-year-old man was shot in the foot by live bullets in Osren near Nablus. Additionally, a child was injured in the thigh by live bullets during confrontations in Omar, north of Al-Khalil. The nature of the child's injury was not specified. In Beit Omar, a young man was injured in the face by rubber bullets after occupation forces entered a Dahr area with or using military vehicles. For the 26th consecutive week, Moroccan cities held vigils condemning the genocidal war in Gaza and showing solidarity with the Palestinian people. Protesters called for an end to normalization with the Zionist entity and demanded the opening of crossings to facilitate the entry of food aid into the besieged Gaza Strip.
This massive popular march in the city of Casablanca aims to express our solidarity with the Palestinian people and the continuation of solidarity activities with a just cause, which is the cause of the Palestinian people who have been subjected to brutal repression and unjust war. Through this march, we express our condemnation of the absolute international silence and the United Nations failure to stop this unjust war and to hold the Zionist entity and its symbols accountable.
The messages sent by these demonstrations and marches aim to denounce normalization, as the normalization of Arab regimes with this entity gives the green light to the Zionist entity to continue and escalate its massacres, bloodshed, and aggression against civilians.
All right, in other topical news, American media reported that Washington is on high alert, anticipating a major Iranian attack within the next week in response to a Zionist bombing in Damascus targeting the Iranian consulate. Iranian Chief of Staff Mohammad Bagheri described the attack as crazy and warned of inevitable retaliation, holding Washington responsible. Here's Osama Ayadi.
After almost a week since the Zionist attack on the Iranian embassy in Damascus killed 7 top Iranian commanders, Tehran readies a response for these strikes after many of its leaders vowed that the Zionist entity's repeated attacks on the Iranian facilities will not pass unpunished. Spokesman for the Islamic Revolution Guards Corps, Ramzan Sharif, confirmed that his country will respond to the attacks conducted by the Zionist entity. Furthermore, he affirmed that the entity is likely to face a devastating blow soon.
Israel's attack is seen as a retaliation for its failure in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Yet they will gain nothing and are likely to face a more devastating blow soon.
For his part, Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei further threatened the entity, affirming that it will be slapped for the airstrike.
This failure of the Israeli regime in Gaza will definitely continue, as well as these desperate efforts like what they did in Syria. Of course, they will be slapped for this action.
The U.S., for its part, has expressed that it's on high alert after many reports confirming that the Iranian side is likely to launch what it described as a significant attack that could come as soon as within the next week, targeting Zionist and American assets in the region. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden held a phone call with the Zionist leader Benjamin Netanyahu and discussed the looming threat of the retaliatory attack.
We received a message from Iran after the strike in Damascus, and in response, we made it clear that we were not behind the attack. We also warned Iran against using the strike as a pretext for further escalation in the region or attacking American facilities or personnel.
Iran has avoided direct conflict with the Zionist entity during the half-year war on Gaza. However, many reports expect that confrontation between the forces of the two rivals is likely to commence soon.
And in repercussion to this piece of news, oil prices reached their highest level since last October at the end of the week's trading on Friday, marking gains for the second consecutive week. Geopolitical tensions in Europe and the Middle East, along with concerns about diminishing supplies, contributed to the increase. Additionally, optimism about the growth of global fuel demand as economies recover also supported the rise in prices. And in other regional news, last Thursday, the Algerian Foreign Ministry summoned Nigerian Ambassador Aminu Malam Manzu, who was received by Salma Malika Haddadi, Director General of Africa. The meeting primarily focused on cooperation between the two countries regarding the deportation of Nigerian citizens residing illegally in Algeria. The Algerian Foreign Ministry stated that the meeting addressed recent rulings by the Nigerian authorities, which Algeria considered unfounded. The Director General reminded the ambassador of the bilateral framework dedicated to this issue and emphasized Algeria's commitment to good neighborly relations and continued coordination with Niger on migration flows and other matters based on mutual respect and cooperation. Still in Africa, and during talks in Kigali on Saturday, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and his Rwandan counterpart Vincent Biruta emphasized the importance of enhancing inner coordination on peace and security issues in the Great Lakes and Sahel-Saharan regions. The meeting, part of Attaf's visit to the Rwandan capital, saw detailed discussions on regional developments, with both ministers commending the alignment of positions and shared viewpoints between Algeria and Rwanda. And during talks held in Kigali on Saturday, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and his Rwandan counterpart Vincent Biruta agreed to expand cooperation and exchange relations, including new areas such as energy and pharmaceutical industry. The meeting, part of Attaf's visit to Rwanda's capital, saw both parties appreciating the positive momentum characterizing bilateral relations, emphasizing the special attention given by the leaders of both countries. The ministers also agreed on practical steps to maintain this momentum, focusing on activating bilateral cooperation mechanisms, notably the Joint Committee for Economic Cooperation, to ensure sustainability. And with this, we reach the end of our program. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, take care and have a good one.